When searching for the lost, remember 8 things. 1, we are vessels. We are rooms. We are so much less important than the things inside of us. We are circuit boards, swallowing the electricity of life upon birth. It wheels through us for all of our days. In our last moment, it will come rushing from our chests and be given back to the wind. When we die, we go everywhere. 2, Newton said energy is neither created nor destroyed. In the hallways of my old middle school, I can still hear my friend Steven singing his favorite song. In the gymnasium, I can hear the way he dribbled the basketball like it was a mallet and his earth was a xylophone. With an ear to the Atlantic, I can still hear the Titanic's band playing here to sleep. Music. Wind, music, wind. 3, the day my grandfather passed away, there was the strongest wind. I could feel as his gentle hands were blowing away from me. I knew then they'd have to find someone who needed them more than I did. On average, 1.8 people on Earth die every second. There was always a gust of wind somewhere. 4, the day Stephen was murdered, everything that made us love him rushed from his knife wounds. As though his chest were an auditorium, his life an audience, leaving in single file, wandering the earth for days and nights. Every ounce of him has been wrapping itself around this world in a windstorm. I have been looking for him for 9 years. 5, our bodies are nothing more than hosts to a collection of brilliant things. When someone dies, I do not weep over their Polaroids or belongings. I begin to look for the life that has left them. I feel out the strongest breeze and take off running. 6, after 9 years, I found Steven. I passed a basketball court in Boston. The point guard dribbled like he had a stadium roaring in his palms. Will Chamberlain pumping to his feet, his hands flashing like X-rays. A crossover, wraparound, rewinding turntables, cracking open. Cameramen turning flashbulbs to fireworks. 7 games, he never missed a shot. His hands were luminous, pulsing. When I asked him how long he'd been playing, he said 9 years. 7, the theory of 6 degrees of separation was never meant to see how many people we could find. It was a set of directions for how to find the people we have lost. I found your voice, Stephen. Found it in a young boy in Michigan who was always singing, his lungs flapping like sails. I found your smile in Australia, a young girl's teeth shining like the opera house in your neck. I found your one true love come to life on the asphalt of Boston 8. We are not created or destroyed. We are constantly transferred, shifted, and renewed. Everything we are is given to us. Death does not come when a body is too exhausted to live. Death comes because the brilliance inside of us can only be contained for so long. We do not die. We pass on the life burning through our throats. When you leave me, I will not cry for you. I will run into the strongest wind I can find and welcome you home.
That's Mr. Michael Lee, our inspiration for today. So beautiful, so appropriate to have poetry in the month when our focus is creative expression as a spiritual practice. And he is going to recite another poem later on during the offering, and there's a line in it that says, "If there ever was a big bang, it's our job to do it again." He did it. And Mr. Lee is offering a workshop this afternoon, and I asked him what's going to happen in the workshop, and he says he's going to recite some poetry, but it's also going to be writing. People are going to write their own poetry out with exercises to draw it out. So that's what's being offered this afternoon. So before I talk about creative expression as a spiritual practice, I just want to say that this is the time of year when we introduce into our service, we just do it once a year, a short conversation about our giving intention practices for the upcoming year. And so for clarity, our giving intention practice, we're not asking for money now. We're asking for a declaration of your intention. For some of you are already giving, so we want to know, won't you disclose what that is? So that when you put that on a form, we can use that information to be good stewards and then plan around it. No matter what the amount is, just tell us what that is, and then we use that to plan very well. It's a very good system for good stewardship. And if you've got any questions about it, if you want to continue your auto program or start one, or you want to know how it works, we have a team of people outside. They're called the Giving Intention Team. And you can go and speak to them. They'll answer any questions you might have. One of the things that one of the tasks that the Giving Intention has annually is to receive nominations from you for potential nonprofit partners that we can partner with next year, send them contributions, hear from them, because of the work that they're doing in the world is similar to the vision that we have for a world that works for everyone. So next week, we will be showing you who we selected from all of the nominations. We try to select organizations that match the theme for the year, so we'll disclose that next week. But before we did that, I wanted to share with you some of the words of gratitude that we receive from our existing 2013 nonprofit program members, because they're so beautiful. So the first slide, please, is from Bal Ashram. Thank you for your support. Your donations are very much appreciated. I'm very grateful to have witnessed your service. It was quite inspirational. You touch thousands of lives every week, and you know we received ongoing photographs from Bal Ashram because their ashram was almost washed away when the Ganges rose up that way, and they wrote and said how timely our contribution was for their recovery effort. Next slide. Thank you for the Center for Spiritual Living's generous gift to PDI Surgery. Our surgery center benefits undeserved suffering among children who are suffering from severe tooth decay. And you'll recall just recently the graphic photographs we saw of the actual work that is being done in the world, supported by donations like ours. Next. Thank you. Because of your generosity, we were able to support victims of human trafficking by supplying them with essential services of shelter and food. Your donations always arrived at the right time. We hear that over and over again. Not so much the amount of money, but the message, the heart connection, the message of encouragement and hope that comes with it. Next one. On behalf of the Earl Baum Center, I want to thank you. Now, we get a letter every single week from the Earl Baum Center. Every single week. It is so heartening to receive that gratitude. We don't practice for the gratitude, but when it comes, so beautiful. Next one. Thank you so much. We are thrilled to be named as one of the Center's nonprofit partners. This is from the launching pad, and we're going to be hearing from them next week. They are going to be featured next week. Next one. How wonderful. I am truly humbled and grateful by your continuance of our work in Cambodia. You'll remember Dr. David Alt came and he told about the amazing work the Khmer Foundation is doing, and we are part of that now. So this is just a sample of the gratitude that we receive on an ongoing basis, and I share it with you because part of our function as the Giving Intention team is to reconnect us with the heart of why we support the center, what we're doing in the world. Another one of the functions we have as a team is to set the theme for next year. So we select the speakers, the topics, and make sure you've got recommended books. So this next year's theme is going to be a year of, the power of spiritual living, because we thought this is a natural outgrowth from this year's theme. Practice, practice, practice. What happens when you practice? Power. So we're all about power, and we've selected topics that have to do with power and books that have the word power in it. And we also have presented you with a quick summary of all of the topics. So if you want to look ahead, you can pick up this blue sheet in the social hall on your way out. And for those of you who like to stay on the same page all year, we have a calendar for 2014 that has each topic and the affirmation, so you can literally stay on the same page. And I don't mind saying that my cat Andrew is featured right there. You knew it was only a matter of time before he appeared inside of our material. So that's one of the things. But most importantly, the task of the team is to help us stay connected with the big picture, like I said, the heart value of why we are doing it. This week's message comes from our teenagers, and they say, and there's subtitles on the video because sometimes teenagers don't speak adult speak, you know that. And the one teenager says, it made me grow so much more being here at the center than I ever thought was possible. That's a teenager. Another one said, tells the story about how his parents, after he was born in the hospital, the parents brought him here first before they went home. And he said, I must love the center so much because I came here first. And he also says that he cannot imagine his life being so happy with his life without the teachings of the center. That's a teenager. Another one says it taught him to be a better person. And then it closes with a young man saying that if you've got something to talk about, that you are not going to find a group of nicer people than at the center to talk to them. That's what we are helping create in our world. So let's see the video.
I really like Teen Group because it has made me grow so much more than I ever thought possible. And I really like camp, which is made possible for me to go through Teen Group because it's a life-changing experience where you grow and you watch all your friends grow and people you don't know grow, and it's just, really nice.
I am Sam McCurry, and I really like the center so much that I came here before I went home. When I was born, my parents brought me to the center, and then I went home.
Yeah, I like the center because you really get to know a lot of the people. It's really community-based.
Camp is involved because of Teen Group, and that is like the biggest thing in my life is camp and going there and knowing all of these incredible people who I see once a year.
I really think it's fantastic because there's all these fantastic people here and lots of love
And if it weren't for Teen Group or the center or this teaching, I would not be able to be so happy with my life.
I don't know, it's really helped me grow a lot as a person and change how I view the world and stuff.
I'm Ellie, I'm 14, and Teen Group is, I've only been here, I haven't really done anything else, and I haven't really been here that long, but I've been here long enough to know that there's a lot of great people, and you can just definitely be yourself and be open, and people are going to be there to support you and help you through anything and everything.
Alright, the center's cool because it's full of really nice people, and if you want to talk about something, you're never going to find a group of nice people.
That's wonderful. And a special thanks goes to the group Clear Story that Christopher is part of, who gave us the permission to use the soundtrack for this video. And it is on our website, right at the Giving Intention page, and it's acting as an inspiration to Centers for Spiritual Living all over the country who are now being inspired to create videos of their young people and their members telling the story of how their centers are helping them in their lives. It's a very beautiful thing. So help us meet our goal. Our goal is to receive 875 forms by the end of the month. We already have 200. That's right on track for the first week. So that means 200 more of you today will submit, right? Submit. All right, so let us talk about creative expression as a spiritual practice. And it worked so well for me to bring my points last week, kept me on track. So I brought more points this week to keep on track. So may we have the first point, please? Won't you read it with me? The first time you stretch beyond your comfort zone, the results may not be immediately what you expected or wanted. So don't give up. Right. Next, please. It's not that you have no creative energy, it's just that you might be using it in a reactive way. don't you know? Next, those things, those things you think are your weaknesses may be your strengths, and they may be the key to your creative expression. Don't you want to know what that's about? Right? We're going to get there. Next, to express more creatively, try reducing the number of activities and people in your life who drain your energy. Yeah, exactly, right? Unless, of course, you're the one who is the drain. Because there's that side of it too. We just got to be real about it. Could be you. Could be. So the book that we are using to guide ourselves through this is quite a change of pace from chanting all of last month. The book we are using to guide us through this is this artist manual, Walking in This World, Julia Cameron. And it's disguised as an artist manual, but what it really is a spiritual manual. It's about living a spiritual life. That's what it is. It's incredible. I mean, you can see I've just marked it all to like crazy because it's so powerful. And this week we're in the chapter that is developing a sense of personal territory. The territory, the place where you're free to roam. Is it too small? And how did it get to be too small? Because we're supposed to be infinite beings, moving, breathing, having our existence within infinity. How come we're so restricted? That's what we're looking at. Can you see? A deeply spiritual message, not only for artists. So the first slide comes from the texts. Can we have it? Together. Festivity breeds creativity. Rigidity breeds despair. When our high spirits are straitjacketed in the name of virtue or discipline, the vital and youthful spark in us that enjoys adventure and invention begins to flicker like a flame in a draft. Rigidity, conformity, control, inflexibility. These are good things. They all have their place, like in synchronized swimming. I was thinking about that. I was in the Air Force, and one of probably the only thing I loved about being in the Air Force, to tell the truth, was marching. I loved being marching. I loved it because I realized that there was something so amazing when individuality yields to something larger, and that movement of moving is just beautiful. And yet there are times when we have to be completely free from rigidity and control and inflexibility so that we can soar, so that which is within us can come out and do what it's supposed to do in the world. And it's not always the world that straitjackets us. Sometimes it's ourselves. Sometimes our straitjacket experience comes from our own internal inflexibility, when we are too loyal to our tastes and our preferences and the road we have traveled and we are familiar with, and we refuse to budge. It's not that there isn't wider territory, we just do not go there. I love to tell the story of my friend. I probably told it too many times, but here it is again. He's a meat and potatoes kind of guy. I used to work with him in Southern California in LA, and we could never really go to any restaurant unless it had a hamburger on the menu. That's what he ate. He wouldn't budge. So we just got fed up with him, and a bunch of friends got together and said to him, you've got to try something outside of your realm of experience. You've got to try something new. And eventually, over time, we talked him into coming with us to an Asian vegetarian restaurant. We were so happy, and we got in there to the restaurant, and there he was sitting at the table with a bowl of steaming noodles in front of him, and he was just sitting there staring at it. Because right on the top of the noodles was a cockroach. Don't you know? I mean, in all the years that we had gone to this restaurant, there was never even so much as a speck of dirt anywhere. But from his consciousness came a cockroach to confirm what he had always suspected about those places. And he just dug his heels in. What could we do? The result was that he started to get left out, because we just couldn't include him. And his world started to get smaller as a result. And it just brings up the question, where have I stopped trying again? He refused to try again. He wouldn't try again. And that's the learning, you know. The first time you stretch out of your comfort zone, you may not see immediate results. It may not be exactly the way you expected. It might be a cockroach. And your own consciousness may be the strongest contender for the reason for staying where you are. It's a tender place. So don't give up. Festivity, it says, breeds creativity. Let's see the next slide. Together, creativity responds to nourishment and warmth. And if we are forbidden to be childlike, told perhaps that it is childish or selfish, if we are urged to be too sensible, our considerable energy is channeled into resistances and over time solidified into a hard-to-penetrate shell of feigned indifference. In other words, it's going to come out one way or the other. Just sometimes the way it comes out is not the best use. That's from last week. Remember, one of the topics was creativity is not an option. It's just how is it coming out. My grandmother used to be responsible for after-school care for us children, and I shared with you last week I was a very curious child. I mean curious in the meaning of strange. Always crazy, so much energy, wanting to turn the house into a castle, running around, dressing up, going nuts, breaking things, reading. And she was so good to me. She loved me so much tolerance, but even she could not keep up with it. And there would come times where she would just shout in frustration, "Stop it! Stop being so childish! Behave yourself!" And it had the effect on me that it often has on us as adults when our creativity is told to shut up and thwarted. That incredible power doesn't go away. It just looks for another outlet. And that's what I would do with her. I would look for ways to work around her, to frustrate her, to be passive-aggressive, because I wasn't going to quit expressing. Oh. So I've learned that. I have a lot of creative energy in me. So do you. We have an incredible source of power in me. And sometimes the way I'm using it is in a reactive way. And when I use that power in that reactive way, it's not bad or it's not good. It's just that it seems it's the smallest, least effective use of that creative genius. I'm thinking of some lines in Michael Lee's poem that he's going to recite later. And he says, "Our job is that of shipbuilders, to create something bigger than we are and to set it free in the dark." And I'm learning that. I'm learning to create something bigger than I am, not just be about reactivity and fixing what is wrong. To create something bigger, so I'm learning to shift my attention away from the time wasters and towards that which stretches me out across time and eternity and space. To move away from the energy drainers and towards that which stirs up a momentum of energy and expression that is beyond ordinary. To move away from the not going nowhere activities and towards those things which lead me into an appreciation of the delicate mystery of being while I'm here. It's an amazing thing, and I learned it right here. It's an amazing thing what happens when I pick up my attention from where it is and put it somewhere else. That somewhere else flourishes and rises up, as if being fed by my attention, it rises to meet me. Such an amazing thing, which is why I love creative tasks, because no matter how insignificant they are, or how foolish they are, or how odd they are, they seem to act like keys that release something in me, something larger than what I am. And that's what this booklet is all about that we gave away free on the first Wednesday of the month. Creativity as a spiritual practice, and you can still download it for free from our website, www.cslsr.org, or if you prefer a hard copy, you can now get them at the bookstore for a nominal fee. And it's filled up with suggestions for creative exercises, like yesterday's obviously was for you to go and visit an artist in their home because it's Art Trails time, right? and to write it up. Or like today's exercise is to create a mandala, and there's a website link with a really easy, convenient suggestion for step-by-step instructions how to do that. Or Tuesday's exercise is to learn a poem by memory, sit somebody down and recite it to them. Yeah, or you could maybe learn one of Micheal's poems, right? Yeah, and recite that just like he does. No, just like you do. Small creative endeavors, so powerful in that they unlock something beautiful, something mysterious, something wise, something ridiculous, something whimsical, something magnificent, something curious, something inventive. And it is my opinion that in that released splendor are the answers to many of the challenges that our country is facing, that our species is facing, that our planet is facing. Right in that. It's in there. So why don't we access it more often? Well, next slide, please. Together, what is lacking for so many of us is precisely the least encouragement. We buy into the notion that life is dreary and difficult and something to be soldiered through. The truth is that as children, many of us expected much more. We had dreams and desires and inklings of delight and full-blown passions. We practiced ballet in the living room. We sang wildly. We loved the goo of finger painting. We loved, period. And love is a passion and energizing force for creative expression, for spiritual living, for relationship, for love. It's everything. There's a great story in another manual for creativity called A Whack on the Side of the Head. Beautiful book. I don't think it's in print anymore, but you can still get it, used bookstores. And it's filled up with beautiful stories about how to unleash and unblock your creativity. And one such story by the author tells about when he was a sophomore in high school, and the English teacher put a small chalk mark on the chalkboard and asked the students what it is. And he talks, and I can just imagine the discomfort about trying to figure out what to say, until after time and much clearing of voices, some student says, it's a dot on the chalkboard. After which people sigh with relief that finally the correct answer has been announced and no more thinking has to happen. And the teacher says to the students, I'm quite surprised at you, because yesterday I did the same exercise with a group of kindergartners. And they thought of 50 different things that it could be. An owl's eye, a cigarette butt, the top of a telephone pole, a star, a pebble, a squashed bug, and on and on and on, because their imagination was in high gear, or as I like to say, they had not yet learned the right answer. So the territory for them to roam in was still wide. I think of the signs that they have in hotels, do not disturb. Because I think sometimes humanity's collective mind has one of them on there. I've learned the correct answer, please do not disturb that. And I think sometimes that is what gets in the way of my creative expression. You can take creative expression and replace it with spiritual expression. I think what gets in the way of my spiritual expression is preconceived ideas that I do not wish to challenge. I think so, sometimes. Do you know that I think among the most difficult people to counsel are ministers and counselors, because they don't come, not all of them, maybe me, they're not empty. They come because they're so used to being on the other side of the answer that they're not teachable always. I'm just saying. There's a story in the book, in that same book, A Whack on the Side of the Head, that illustrates it. It talks about a creativity teacher meeting with a student to discuss the learning process. And after all the discussion, there comes a time to have tea, and so the teacher pulls out the teacups and starts pouring the tea into the teacup and carries on pouring, even though it's overflowing. And finally, the student says, "Teacher, it's not going into the cup, it's pouring over." And the teacher says, "Indeed, that's very observant. It's similar to you in your case. I can't pour anything into you because it's already full." Wow. How do you make room for something new if you find yourself in that story? I don't know about you, but I know what I have to do. I have to challenge my boundaries. I have to expand my territory. I've got to put myself consciously in new surroundings regularly. I've got to try things that are new. That helps. I've got to speak to people I don't usually speak to. I've got to read stuff that represents a different point of view. That's what I've got to do. I've got to practice the exercises, because otherwise I fall into this lull of ordinariness of my own making. That's what happens, you know. And then how? How is the splendid creative genius of the universe supposed to talk to me if I'm stuck in my ways and in my tastes and in my opinions? Very narrow. Here's some advice from the book. Next one. We must become a little nuts about ourselves, about our notions, whimsies, and ambitions. Instead of chiding ourselves or allowing ourselves to be chided into an adult solemnity, we must regain our right to be goofy. Yeah, even silly. Yay. As we celebrate rather than repress our passion, we are rewarded by more passion, and that is the fuel for life, right? Not just for art, absolutely. I was talking to a colleague of mine. You know how we are who are seekers, and we are so good at looking within and chiding ourselves. And she was talking to me saying, you know, I have learned something about myself. And she was all proud that she had done this introspection. She said, organizationally, I have got some personality defects that are getting in the way of my success. I said, what can these be? And she said, well, you know, I'm a control freak. I listened, and she said, and I'm also too direct in my communication. And also, I just hate wasting time. And these are my Achilles heels. They're not working out for me in developing my organization. And I'm listening to her, and all I can hear is she's chiding herself, you know. She is trying to fit her weird self into a world. So I'm listening to her talk about this, and so I thought, well, what, I asked her, if your Achilles heels, you know, these things that you've identified as your weakness, what if they were actually your best qualities, your strengths? See, because I know her. I mean, she truly is at her best when she is in control freak mode, because things are going to happen, and they're going to happen right. And her communication, when she's on it, oh my gosh, you know where you stand and what a thing means, and there is no ambiguity. And oh, she hates to waste time, because she will just depart from you if you are wasting her time. She's the sort of person that you want to be in charge of a project, because it's going to get done, and it's going to get done at a level of excellence that is way more than I could ever pull out of myself. You see, she hadn't yet heard last week's message, right? I'm not normal. Remember, you say that with me. I'm not normal. So I had to invite her into that and say to her, do you see? I'm inviting you to celebrate your abnormality. Not make excuses for it. Her little eyes just grew like saucers, and her territory expanded. Now, free to move around the cabin. Right? So I invite you to consider this. If the company you are keeping persistently points out your faults, if the company you are keeping leaves you feeling drained and defective and wrong, you might want to examine that. Because keep in mind, what is annoying to one person is fascinating and delightful to another. Don't waste your beautiful treasure where it is not loved. On the other hand, if everywhere you go you leave people drained, keep that in mind too. It might be you. It might be you, yeah. So there's an assignment in the book that says examine the people, the time, the activities that you're engaged in your life and measure the feeling of fire coming out or being drained. And I did that. And I had to acknowledge that there are times when I'm a drain. Right? You'll find yourself in both sides of the story. There's some amazing stories she shows in the book. Let's have the next one together. A woman writer married to an omnivorously needy partner was astounded to discover that after her divorce, both her creative energy and her sexual energy came springing back to life like a lioness waking up after years of medication and depression from living in a too small cage. Wow. That's the learning point right there for me. To express more creatively, just try reducing the number of activities, maybe people in you and around you that are draining your energy. I think we teach people how to treat us by what we put up with. And sometimes what we put up with is because we have not yet become clear on what is in us. And so we are learning what is in us. At the center, we say what is in us. Every one of us is a creative genius, and that's the heart of who we are. And in you, and in me, and in everyone, it's unique. It has never been lived out that way before. And in us, it is responsible for our dreams and our visions, and it is also responsible for our yearning, because it's constantly desiring to express something that has never been expressed before. And we think of that creative genius as the energy of divinity itself. And we think it is worthy of courting and releasing into the wild through you. Let us pray. There is only one power, by whatever name we call it. We mean the same thing. That which is eternal, everywhere present, above, below, inside, outside. And we recognize it by means of this prayer, even though we know no word, no concept is sufficient to contain it. Nevertheless, we lean into it with our prayer so that we may identify ourselves as at home in the mind of divinity itself, made from its eternity, made from its infinite expression, channels of its divine energy. With that in mind, we declare in this moment our openness to be such a loving channel of this divine creative energy for the upliftment of all of creation, so that we may take our place in the community of beings to help contribute to a world that works for everyone. And we celebrate this. We give thanks for it. Having remembered the truth of our being, we are set free. And together we say, and so it is. And I invite you to breathe in, sigh. And with that, we make a transition to that time of our service where we share. When the ushers move among us quietly, we will be hearing from our resident poet, Micheal Lee. So I invite you to participate afterwards in the giving intention. Ushers, please receive the gift. Micheal.
What is our job as artists? Across the street, there's a small boy. He's opening a leather instrument case as though it were a cage, his instrument, a winged thing. This boy begins to play a violin. He cradles it gently as though he's holding an injured bird. He rubs the horse-haired bow across the violin, or perhaps the violin is a nightingale. As he begins to play, I realize I'm made of infinite doors and limitless rooms. I feel one locked deep inside of me swing open. A poem falls to the floor. It rises upwards like an undressing in reverse. His bow is tethered to the poem. With each draw, I feel as the words are pulled closer and closer to my hands. In that moment, I realized that this poem was his song. I would release this moment to an audience of strangers like a ship out to sea. It will return, but I will not know it is mine. Our job is that of shipbuilders, to create something bigger than we are and set it free into the dark. A crowd is an endless ocean, teeming and built for the transmuting. If you follow the path of Beethoven's Sixth Symphony to its root, you will find a single bird. Between that bird and Beethoven, there are 3 children jumping rope. The whir of the string sings to the forest. Watching them is a branched choir of nightingales. They inhale and rewrite the children's game. Beneath the amethyst light of dawn, an old woman looks on and sits beneath her loom to capture that song in thread. Her daughter, a harpist, begins weaving a tower of sound. At the top of it, a painter hurls himself into a canvas as though it were a window is frame. A piano plummeting to the concrete below. It spills into a field of notes for Beethoven to collect one by one by one. Each moment is impossible without the one that came before it. And so it is also true of art. In 1808, the Sixth Symphony was finally born. It was cast from the dock of a stage to the ears of the world. And last week, I heard that endless voyage of song as it leapt from a small boy in a street corner in South Minneapolis. This poem is only an extension of that sound. There's a reason the bars of a piano are called keys, the tuning pegs of a violin, keys, the buttons of a typewriter, keys. It is art that frees what we never knew to be locked inside of us. We are thirsty to know. Scientists never named us right. This throat is a flute. Your ribs have no cage, only a door, only a leather case, and nothing is kept here against its will. If there ever was a Big Bang, it is our job to be it again. Our job is to be an abstinent revolver, the opposite of a gravedigger, to be a hill of archers, unstringing their bows in unison like a flood of wings that backwards twang as they realize they were meant to be musicians. Our job is to look up, to feel something come alive in our hands. Our job is setting something free. Thank you.